Wendy Chamberlain.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move that the Carers Leave Bill now be read the third time. May I start by congratulating the Honourable Member for Barnsley Central for ensuring that his bill has reached its remaining stages and now passes to the other place, I'm sure, and I hope to feel the same sense of achievement in a short period of time. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm conscious that some here today and who are looking to speak will have personal experience of caring for a relative or other dependent, and I'm very grateful for their participation in today's debate. I intend to keep my other thanks to later on with the leave of the House, but the number of members who have spoken out about their experiences during the course of this bill's progress has really brought to life how widespread caring is to so many, both here in this House and out with. It's wonderful that following the second reading committee stage, we again have time to debate this important issue again today. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, statistics from the Family Resources Survey 2020-2021 show that there are approximately 4.2 million people across the UK who are providing unpaid care by looking after an elderly or disabled family member or another dependent. And the majority of those individuals are women aged over 50. And in the previous debate, there was much conversation about how we get people back into the workplace. And we know that the government has a particular focus on those aged over 50. So I am very hopeful that the government will continue to support my bill because I believe that it will help in this area. But the reality is that becoming a carer is something that can happen to any one of us. Caring is a reality for many millions of people across the UK. It can take many forms. It can be the day-to-day physical caring, washing, dressing, feeding for those who cannot care for themselves. It can be making medical appointments or arranging for paid care. It can even just be doing the shopping for a housebound elderly neighbour. Caring or being cared for is something which almost everyone will experience at some point in their lives. However, sadly in 2021, Carers UK research found that 37% of working carers said that they needed unpaid care leave in order to manage working and caring. And a further 1 in 7 said that without carers leave, they would have to reduce their working hours or give up altogether. These statistics are even starker when talking to carers of those with more debilitating conditions like multiple sclerosis. Preliminary findings to a recent survey of unpaid carers by the MS Society found that 13% of respondents had given up working and 20% had taken early retirement due to their caring responsibilities. Over two-thirds, Madam Deputy Speaker, said that their work had been impacted due to the help they provided to their loved one with MS. And indeed, my own experience when going out to my constituents to see if I could find people who would benefit from this legislation really brings those statistics to life. So many carers in North East Fife got in touch with me, and the reality is they had already given up work because of their caring responsibilities. I very much hope that today's bill might help encourage some of those people to find a way back to work and therefore to make a contribution to the economy as well as providing that very vital care. Now, these new employment rights are absolutely vital at a time when the government is trying to get people, especially the over 50s, back to work. But I firmly believe, Madam Deputy Speaker, it will also help businesses, many of which are already under significant financial strain without the costs of staff turnover and continued recruitment. The successful passage of this bill will be a significant milestone. Carers leave will provide increased flexibility to unpaid carers who are balancing paid employment with those caring responsibilities. It will enable them to take some time out of work if required, which will support them to stay in work, because vitally they will not have to choose between caring or working. The bill creates a new entitlement for employees to take up to a week of unpaid leave a year in order to provide or arrange care for a dependent with a long-term care need. And I certainly hope that, for example, regular hospital appointments, those planned things that you know potentially are going to happen when you're caring, can be made easier by the provisions in this bill. All employees who meet their eligibility conditions will be entitled to this leave, regardless of how long they have worked for their employer. And that means this entitlement will be available to eligible employees from the first day of their employment. This is critical in overcoming hurdles carers experience when re-entering the workplace, or even when changing jobs. Again, something that was talked about in the previous debate. I think it was the the Honourable Member for South West Hertfordshire was talking about the fact that we don't tend to have. I was a police officer, and when I joined the police I firmly expected at 22 to be spending 30 years in the police service. That isn't how it's worked out, Madam Deputy Speaker, and increasingly portfolio careers, people moving between jobs, is becoming a feature of everyday working life, and this bill will help support that because people know that they can take these provisions into different jobs. Now, the leave will be available to take flexibly in increments of half days. This is important for both employers and employees, and there will be no requirement to provide evidence in relation to a request for carers leave. And I think this makes it easier for carers to take the leave, and it also benefits employers who don't have to deal with potential data protection issues in terms of holding a third party's medical details. I also think, having worked previously in HR, it helps with that psychological contract. If employees feel that their employers trust them in relation to taking this leave, that helps build up those good relationships that are so important in the workplace. Employees taking carers leave will have the same employment protections as associated with other forms of family-related leave. This includes protection from dismissal or detriment as a result of having taken the leave. And again, I think having that all together, having it consistent with other types of leave and employment protections, makes it easier for businesses to administer and for employees to understand. And importantly, Madam Deputy Speaker, these rights will be available to carers who do all sorts of caring for different sorts of people. The definition is simple. You must be managing the care of a dependent who requires long-term care. And this isn't the usual narrow definition of the word dependent. This includes anyone who reasonably relies on you to provide or arrange care. So it could be care for a spouse, a civil partner, a child or a parent. My husband is a carer for his own mother, but it could also be someone who lives in the same household as the employee with some expectations such as a tenant or a lodger, or even your next door neighbour or the elderly couple down the road. One of the positives of COVID, and I always hesitate to say positives, is the community spirit that it engendered, that help that people gave to others in their communities, and this encourages that too. Such a broad definition will ensure that a highly diverse range of caring relationships are in the scope of the leave entitlement. And the definition, Madam Deputy Speaker, of long-term care need is also broad. It includes disability, but it also encompasses a person with an illness or an injury, including mental health, that requires or is likely to require care for more than 3 months. And it also includes a person requiring care for any reason connected with old age. So you can see, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is all encompassing. And I firmly believe that this is a right which has to work for businesses as well as for carers, for employers as well as for employees. So whilst the leave is designed to be flexible and to fit around the day-to-day lives of carers, employees do still need to give reasonable notice. These notice requirements broadly follow those for taking annual leave, so again they are easy to understand from both sides. Carers leave is a right to have rather than a right to request, but recognise that there may be circumstances where granting the leave will be difficult. The employer will be able to postpone but not to deny the leave, and this allows the space for employers and employees to come to arrangements that work best for both parties. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, over recent months I've had the privilege of meeting with some businesses who already have carers leave in place to learn how carers leave works for them. And what I've learned is that being carer friendly is not only not a detriment to business, but it actually helps them. Employees who feel supported are more motivated and more loyal. The cost savings on recruitment and additional productivity easily counterbalances any minor administration costs. On my Twitter this morning, the CIPD said that they supported the bill. I'm a former associate member of this institute, but I think that really is telling that the main body for HR in the UK recognises that this is good for business and its members. It tells you that this is the right step. Now, I know many members have also met with companies in favour of carers leave due to the drop-in that I sponsored last week, and I want to thank the representatives of TSB and Centrica who came to Parliament for giving up their time to share their experiences with us. Carers UK runs a very effective employers group, and it's really good to hear those very positive stories. Now, every experience of caring is unique, And without statutory employment rights, everyone's experience of dealing with their employer will differ. Some will be excellent in their support, others indifferent, and many more somewhere in between. And this bill will benefit everyone, no matter where they are on that scale. One of the key things that's come across in speaking to constituents and others who are carers is that inbuilt guilt that you have as a carer. On the one hand, you feel guilty because you can't actually give the care that you want to give to your loved one or the dependent. And on the other hand, that guilt you feel in dealing with your employer and asking for time off, potentially unpaid, and not feeling that you're making a full contribution. Hopefully this bill will help mitigate some of that. And one of those constituents was Judith, who I spoke with last week, to hear about her experience of caring and what the bill would mean for her. She is working, currently 4 days, hoping to move to 3 days and in positive conversations with her employer, but she's responsible for her elderly father who, having had a tumour removed last year, has had more and more frequent hospital trips for treatment arising from that. His most recent lasted over a week, and it's left him very disorientated since he's come out of hospital. She does feel that she's been lucky in that she's been able to take unpaid leave from work, but she does feel that guilt I referenced, and she feels worried that the goodwill of her employer just won't last forever. And as I mentioned earlier, Madam Deputy Speaker, that carers' leave is a right to have, not a right to request, should help with this. That's the key thing here. She doesn't yet have the right to have. This bill will give her that, and it will take away that guilt of asking work for time off and remove the worry of what might happen next. And the reality is the situation will only get more difficult for Judith and her family, and indeed her brother has made the decision that he's going to give up work to rely on his pension. And although that is a very noble thing that he has done within the family, and they're all sharing that load, it demonstrates, back to that trying to keep people in the workplace, it demonstrates that we have much more still to do in this place to help enable people to continue to do both. I've also heard from employers that believe that this new employment right will be the catalyst for starting conversations about caring, that even within carer-friendly organisations, getting to people to talk about their responsibilities or even to simply recognise themselves as carers can be a challenge. This makes caring as ordinary a part of working life as taking a sick day with COVID or maternity leave after a baby. This will be a huge shift in how we understand carers. And I previously mentioned, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the largest employer in my own constituency, the University of St Andrews, have very good policies in place, but they recognised themselves when looking at this bill that they didn't necessarily bring them all together properly. And so what happened was people were coming to their line managers when they'd hit a crisis point, as opposed to engaging at an earlier stage to get the support that they needed, that meant that they didn't hit that crisis point within their family. On the other end of the spectrum, for those carers whose employers do not have any policies in place to support them, this new law will be a vital first step, both in the actual leave they can take, but in feeling seen and supported in work. The multiple sclerosis survey I referenced earlier found that out of carers who are currently employed, only 5.2% had been offered advice or support to help them stay in work. That's simply atrocious, and I hope this bill will spark those conversations. But importantly, although carers' leave entering law will feel like an end, it is also a start. There is still so much more we can do to support unpaid carers. In the long run, I hope most companies will offer paid carers leave, and that we may even get a statutory entitlement to such. We must fund day centres and reform carers allowance so that carers can potentially earn more before that allowance drops off. As I said to the Prime Minister before Christmas, the caring never stops. But we can also do so much more to help carers into work through training and support. With the Carers Trust, I visited Camden Carers last week to learn about a project called Working for Carers. And that is a project specifically focused on getting carers who have left the workplace because of their caring responsibilities back into the workplace. And I met two of their participants, one of whom, Nicola, as a result of the help she'd received from the project, was setting up her own business, whilst the other, Amanda, was returning to work in education as a classroom assistant. It is proof that in the right conditions, carers can work and be highly valuable to our economy. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, to conclude at this stage, this is really an incredible day to see a bill through to its final common stages. I've had lots of Well done, Wendy's, but I'm also very conscious that getting this opportunity starts with your number being drawn out of a big glass bowl. So there's a degree of luck, but I firmly believe it's what you do with that luck afterwards that is important. I very much hope the Minister will rise to continue to confirm the Government's support for this bill, but as anyone who's brought a private member's bill in this place will know, there is a certain level of anxiety in seeing your bill go off to the other place without you. But I'm confident that my colleague Lord Fox of Leamington will be an excellent guardian of the bill, and I thank him for taking it on. I'll leave it there, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hope to speak again with the leave of the House. Thank you.